Respected Professor Dr. R. Jagannathan, Vice Chancellor, Professor K. Ashok, Dr. K. Tangavel, Dr. R. Rajalakshmi, Dr. G. Yoganandan, Dr. K. Jayaraman, distinguished faculties, resource persons, members of Senate and Syndicate, my dear students, friends from the media. I'd like to thank Professor Jagannathan, the Vice Chancellor, for organizing this G20 related one-day seminar. Under his leadership, the university has been making definitive progress, which are very obvious in the various ranking and recognition that the university has been receiving. Even in G20, Periyar University has played significant role. This university has held several events related to G20. And today is one such. In the day-long seminar, many eminent resource persons have shared their ideas, their thoughts, deliberated upon the various segments of New Delhi leadership declarations. And I'm sure it must have been highly enriching for all of you. While all these deliberations on specifics, which are very, very crucial, must have given you insight into the problems, various problems confronting the world, and also the way forward. I would like to share with you the broad context of it. Why are we holding G20 related seminars again and again and again? You all know that G20 in the mid-90s, it was formed essentially by the large economies for collective and coordinated response to economic crisis. And in the first decade of the present millennia, when the economic meltdown happened, this problem got greater salience. And then they realized that these problems are not just limited to economy. So earlier, G20 meetings used to be held with the finance ministers and the chief of central banks of the member countries. But then it was elevated to the level of heads of government. Prime ministers and presidents became the primary stakeholders of the meetings. And it continued. But what unique thing that our country, India, brought to the presidency? When we took over the presidency from Indonesia, we were in a different world. The pandemic had struck the world, had scarred the world. It didn't spare anyone. It took a heavy toll on human lives. Millions and millions perished. Economy had a nosedive. They are struggling to recover. It took a broad spectrum, heavy cost on human life. But it also exposed one thing. It exposed the inadequacy of the world order, the global order, in addressing a problem like a global pandemic, COVID-19. Because when this pandemic has struck, the international bodies, including WHO, they knew nothing about it. They were just from time to time making certain speculations and giving some wild advisories. As far as the needy countries, the poor countries, the developing countries, they were resource-strapped. They didn't have access to medicines. They didn't have access to those resources to absorb the shock that this pandemic had created. And so it was realized that the problems of the world are not merely economic problems. There are far many other problems as well, which are very, very important, which are of existential concern. And all these problems must be addressed. And the existing international framework of United Nations and the multilateral entities like World Bank and IMF, they were grossly inadequate to address the problems, not only a pandemic, climate. We all have been talking about climate change, climate consequences of Earth heating up. But there has been mostly blame game. Who is more responsible, who is less? As far as the substantive action to address the problems, these were missing. So the present or existing world order, existing forums, international forums and multilateral forums, they were inadequate to address it. Take the case of poverty. We know that a large section of the world, large number of people in the world are underfed, undernourished. They face a starvation-like situation. Now this poverty, which has a much wider implications, increasingly, even the affluent world, they started realizing the consequence of it, because the poor and underfed and hungry were not limited to their own land. Poverty and hunger creates its own problem, and the spillover effect started being felt on other countries, advanced countries. And they started feeling the heat of it. So poverty and hunger was not just a problem of a distance, because the distant problem was going to hit them. It started hitting them. So this problem had to be addressed. Climate crisis, we all know, but while addressing the broader climate crisis, how to check the heating up? Meanwhile, natural disasters. Disasters have been happening off and on with a more frequency and greater virulence. And when it has struck, and the people are hit, and they are hit severely, the instrument or the mechanism, the response to it is highly uneven. There are many countries who do not have the capacity or the resilience, and no one knows who will be hit. And we know that there are capacities here and there located in the world, but if pulled together, we can have a greater resilience to deal with the disaster crisis. So host of issues, women. We have been talking about women empowerment. But the fact is, and even this presentation shows how in coming decades, the problem of poverty, problem of undernourishment, and all related problems, the women will be the worst victim. They are not only victim of war, they are also victim of all this climate change which is happening, victim of poverty, victim of pandemic, victim of everything. They are at the receiving end. So how do we address this? And so when G20 presidency came to India, India gave it a fundamental change. It reoriented the whole direction of G20. Because first is, the G20 we all know is a country, is a group of people and the countries which are fairly rich, fairly capable, powerful, economically powerful, otherwise powerful. So if India succeeds in driving this message to this body can be an effective multilateral institution to transform the world for a safer and better future. And so, what India started doing from the beginning, first of all, it made it a people-centric presidency. What does it mean? You know, all over the world, the governance has been the prerogative of the governments. And the governments, they believe that they know what is good for the people and they come up with policies and plans. People's involvement in problem solving is not much encouraged. Now this model, India has realized and disproved it. So India started, if you look at the transformations which have been happening in this country on all these forums I will come to, these offer an example, an illustration for the rest of the world that, look, if this experiment can succeed in India, can it not succeed in the larger world? Take the case of pandemic. How did India manage the pandemic? When pandemic struck, the prediction was minimum 70 to 80 million Indians will die. Because we didn't have resources. And it was a fact. But then, how did we address this problem? The problem that we addressed, and this became a model for the rest of the world. First, when people are locked in their houses, they are not able to move out, and it happened all over the world. People need to be fed. People must have basic food. And so India had already started in 2014-15 itself a project called Digital India. The Digital India, with digital technology being taken to the last man, and another was Jan Dhan account. How every household to have an account, bank account, even zero account. Now this, a trinity of JAM, Jan Dhan account, which is financial inclusion, and now we have more than 50 crores Jan Dhan accounts. And the good thing is nearly half of them, we were talking about women empowerment, this also is I'll come to. Nearly half of them, I won't say more than 47% of them is women accounts. So, account holding, mobile and Aadhaar. These three linked. We had food. Food were there in our silos thanks to our agricultural scientists and farmers. We had food, and countries which have faced famine and they have faced a starvation, not necessarily because they didn't have food, they had a problem of food distribution. So what India did? India began targeted, knowing, yes, we know who all are, delivering food. And we started to about 80 crore people started getting, and they continue getting. So the food problem, as far as the basic need is concerned, it is met. There was hardly any case of any pilferage, because the system became by and large transparent and foolproof. While providing the food, other necessities like health. Health is also a need. So when Ayushman Bharat was launched, it was launched before, with assurance that every family will have, eligible family will have a coverage of up to 5 lakhs rupees treatment. The family didn't have to worry much about where to go and get the money. There were other measures for the health. We had the vaccines. Initially, there were many people who were skeptical, many people and countries. But now it is proved that ours is among the best vaccines in the world. We delivered the vaccine. When we discovered the vaccine, when we invented the vaccines, the question was to vaccinate the people. Over 1 billion people to be vaccinated. And then, while on the one hand we have started producing vaccine, on the other hand our people, our scientists, they also came up with an app, COVID app. COVID app uploaded on mobile, everyone has mobile. Everyone vaccinated immediately through the COVID. Within seconds the person gets the vaccinated certificate. It helps the person's movement, boarding the flight, boarding the train, moving out, I am vaccinated, I don't have to face the problem. Having the vaccine, getting the people vaccinated, not once but twice, and in some cases even the third doses. This a smooth operation became an shining example for the world that look, India could do that. India could deliver the food to the people, provide assistance for health through several schemes, including Ayushman, develops the vaccines and delivers the vaccines, get the people vaccinated in record time, so smartly, so smoothly, it became a case study. Now, can this experiment be, or could it not be replicated at a higher level for the rest of the world? the world started looking at it. Yes, I think there is a point we should. Take the case of climate. We know that climate crisis cannot be addressed by one country, it has to be collective. But what all India is doing, or India has been doing to address the issue. In 2015, when in the climate summit, Prime Minister took a decision that look, we'll move away from this carbon, this fossil fuel, to renewable clean energy. At the time, we had not fixed the target as such that by when we will move away completely, but resolution was very firm. First thing India did, we built an international solar alliance. We looked at the sun, that this sun which has got so much of inexhaustible energy, and there are many countries in the world which are sun rich, can't we tap into that energy? Because if you start looking at it, you start working on it, everything starts becoming cheaper. Initially, solar energy was expensive. It is becoming increasingly cheaper and affordable. So when India formed the International Solar Alliance, there were many skeptics in the world. There were not many countries willing to join. Of course, France was one which came. And it was headquartered in NCR, National Capital Region of Delhi. Today, more than 100 countries are member of it. And our own capacity of solar has gone up more than 20-fold. We are generating almost nearly 70 gigawatts of solar energy today. We were doing just about 10 years back, we were just about less than 3 gigawatt. Not only that, we started moving to other clean energy, renewable energy. So while energy transition, and we have decided by 2030, half of our energy needs will be from clean energy. And of course, the target is by 2070, we will have zero carbon emission. As such, India, which accounts for 17% of the world population, our share to carbon emission is less than 5%. Less than 5%. As such, we are a country with very, very less carbon emitting country. But we will reduce that to zero. And we are showing an example how we are moving towards clean energy, non-carbon energy. We have started wind. We have started from waste. And of course, hydrogen is the latest, which is at the nascent stage. Not only energy, when we talk about climate, it affects the fertility of the soil. The soil all over the world is getting more and more infertile. The nutrient value in the soil is reducing sharply, primarily because of excessive use of chemicals and pesticides. Now, excessive use of chemicals and pesticide, it gives you benefit in the short term, but it does damage at a long term. Very, very serious damage. And so India showed the way. We started moving with determination towards natural and organic farming. This natural and organic farming is now catching up all over the country like a fashion and fad. Here in our own state, I have been visiting districts and remote areas, and I can see that revolution. Organic and natural farming. climate resilient farming. For long we have been doing farming water intensive, paddy. Punjab, which doesn't have much rain. They were known for wheat production. They were the wheat basket of the country. But they also got into paddy, rice, and free electricity. They started pulling water and putting chemical, fertilizer, pesticide. Production got up, shot up. But today, it all declined. The land is fallow. The state which has nearly 3%, 300%, 3 times more than the national average productivity farm, it is today below the national average. Nearly half of it is because of exploitation of the soils. It was not a climate resilient farming, and plus because you need more water, so do underground water, you start pumping up, because for this political freebies, you get free electricity, you pump it, but after all, today or tomorrow, if you do it yourself, a few years later, you face it. And this is what happened in just about less than 3 decades. It didn't take long. Less than 3 decades, table went down, soil became infertile. So when we talk climate resilient, means the area where we have less water, why don't we go for producing those grains which need less water? And that is when millet came. Millet. India gave the push. And we are the largest millet producing country in the world. And that's what I believe, I'm told. And we have started encouraging the world. And the UN also realized it. They also adopted it as a year of the millet. And here in our own state, I find it is catching up. People, our farmers, our organic, natural farmers are taking in a very big way. I have visited some farms in South Tamil Nadu, which is less water. I visited a farm in Ramnathpuram. There are other farms also, but just one farm I'm quoting. I found it's a water-starved area. But I find young people, young couple, both of them are IITians. They did IIT from IIT Madras. They were working in some software companies, getting good salary, good money. They abandoned that, they came, they picked up a piece of land, they developed it. They put a dairy to manure the field, take the dairy product, and started millet cultivation. In 10 years, they have more than 50 employees working with them. They are happy. I find there are many cases. Climate resilient farming. Now, these are all the ways which India is showing to the world. In disaster resilience, now we have proved to the world that, look, we have the capacity. Earlier, everyone we used to look up to Japan because Japan is highly earthquake prone. And we also learned from them. They are very advanced. We learned from them. But disaster response is not just relief or rescue. It is also rehabilitation. Now, over the years, we have established a credible reputation of India being capable of providing disaster relief, rescue relief, and rehabilitation. We are also helping the countries in the need, other countries. We know here and there, off and on, you would be reading in the newspaper how Indian disaster relief people have gone in foreign countries and they have been helping. Many countries are coming forward to India to sign MOU, to have a coordinated disaster relief response and also to develop disaster resilient infrastructure. Because what damage happens, the life lost, but the damage that happens to the infrastructure, it kills the economy. A building destroyed, a road destroyed, an airport destroyed, a dam destroyed. It doesn't take, it takes a lot of time and resources to rebuild it. So how to build the disaster resilient infrastructure? So now, world is coming to India, and they are forming this disaster resilient infrastructure alliance. In climate, again, we are walking the talk. When it comes to poverty alleviation, we know some months back, data has been released that in the last less than a decade, over 13.5 crores Indians have been lifted out of multi-dimensional poverty. How did this happen? And here is also linked with this women empowerment. This happened, again, as I said right at the beginning, the Jam Trinity. When we started believing in the power of the common man, power of our folks in the villages, our young men and women. All that is needed is to give them the confidence that you can do it and give them the assistance that they need. Among the various schemes, Mudra loan started. We started Mudra loan. Almost collateral free. 50,000 to 10 lakhs. You start something. A business does not necessarily mean a large infrastructure or a large setup. A business can be even someone in the remote starts selling snacks and tea. That also is a business. It is these micro revolutions that revolutionizes and lifts the country up. Today, over 40 crore people have taken Mudra loan. Over 40 crore. Average loan is about 75,000 rupees. Many people of the erstwhile, the old thinking would say, 50,000, 75,000, what? But this 75,000, 50,000 is bringing about the revolution. 23 lakhs crore money has been dispersed in Mudra loan. 40 crore people taken 23 lakhs crore. They are all doing it wherever they are, in their colonies, in the streets, in their homes. Small. And all this are working towards removing poverty. For long the world has had, even today they have a GDP-centric. We also, when we say G20, 85% of the global GDP is with this. What does it mean? A country with a higher, US, United States of America, is the country with the highest GDP. But you also know that there are a large number of people who are homeless. They have no place to stay. They have no access to health care. They are living in utter destitution. This GDP-centric. GDP means a country, how much wealth the country has. But whether this wealth there is some amount of equitability. That yes, we don't have dire inequality. You have people, everyone must have access to the basic ingredients of a healthy citizenship, a healthy life. So the shift from the GDP to the human-centric development, leading to all these schemes where a person, even an illiterate woman in the village, chooses to set up a tea shop, has got access and gets the money because they have the money. As far as the women empowerment is concerned, right at the beginning, for long, if you look at the 2011 census in our country, We have more men than women. Demography. Inequality in demography. It's not that the women were not born. But we all know that women become victims, they don't survive. In some parts of the country, there used to be female feticide. The girl children used to be killed in the womb itself. And even when the child is born, a girl child, neglected. If the girl child falls sick, there is a discrimination, the son and the daughter. Women used to die during pregnancy. So, when the schemes, several schemes including, and today when I'm talking about the demography, though the latest census has not been done fully and results not yet, but the survey, credible survey shows that we have bridged the demographic gap, and there are indications that perhaps there are more number of women today than men. As and when the data will come, we'll get to know very definitively, but there are indications. But when Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, when that Save the Daughters, Educate the Daughters program started, it was not a slogan. A lot of supplementary, enabling environment had to be created. When you say that Beti Bachao, the mother has to be, while she is pregnant, there has to be adequate nutrition, there has to be adequate health care. So when the Poshan Abhiyan started, and when the tracking started of every pregnant woman, mother, and guiding them, why yes, this is the time, this is the regular checkup and supporting nutritional support. And post-delivery, the care. When you talk about Beti Padhao, is everybody likes, okay, my daughter should be educated. But if there is no toilet in the school, how can my daughter go? This we didn't think of. We were insensitive. We didn't create enabling environment, we kept talking about women empowerment. But when the toilet campaign began, every home to have a toilet, and we got it. The country in 2016, we had a dubious distinction of more than 60% of Indians were going for open defecation. Today we are open defecation free. It may be a different matter that somebody out of habit could be going somewhere in rural areas, I do not know. As I was told, we just saw in the presentation that though the cooking gas is given in every house, 47% are still, I think, using firewood or something. Yes, there may be other issues. The beginning has been made. So when you create the enabling environment, when you ensure that the lady of the house doesn't have to go out to collect the firewood, doesn't have to go to fetch water, so the access of cooking gas, access to potable water is made available, the revolution will happen. Today we have over 10 crores households have got the cooking gas. Potable water, drinking water to houses, we are now nearing saturation. Homelessness. Here also there is a women empowerment because 30 million houses which have been built, over 30 million houses, more than 3 crores, homeless people got the house. In the ownership, in all the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, when they get the house, ownership is with the women of the house. Men also are put, but women has to be there. So the women becomes the co-owner of the house. Women is not just a tenant or somebody living in the house. A sense of empowerment. Various areas which were closed to the women. they are now opened, including our defense forces. In our military, the women were only for health, nursing, medical. Today, our daughters are flying fighter jets. All the doors are open to women. So you create the enabling environment, even for the entrepreneurship, a special provision for the women entrepreneur, a special financial assistance for the women entrepreneur. And as I said, through the Jan Dhan account, we have ensured financial inclusion. Financial inclusion. The women are empowered today much more than they were before. Now, this has graduated to the next level. Rather than we're talking about women empowerment, we are talking about women-led development. Women must be at the leading positions, at the leadership positions. And while in the rest of the domain environment, the gates are open, environment is being created to enable them to come forward, and they are coming forward. The highest level of lawmaking, legislative body. Now, the parliament has already made the law. Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, the Women Empowerment Bill, with the reservations for women in parliament and all the assemblies. It is being worked out soon. As soon as it is all done, it will be operationalized. But the women's say in law making is also ensured. Now, this is becoming a model for the world. The world is looking at in India. When India talks about an inclusive growth, inclusive development, when we talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, what we call it here, Yadu Mure, Yavarum Kelir, because we are a family. This is not reflected in the present world order. Present world order is based on wealth and military power. It was set up, it was created after the Second World War by the powerful countries, by the victor countries. But they have created all the problems. We didn't talk about climate 60, 70 years ago. Nobody talked about climate. Today it is a very issue. About the conflict, it was created to resolve the conflict, to say there will be peaceful world. It has not created a peaceful world. The war is happening all over. Some visible wars, some invisible wars. Somewhere it cools down, some other place it erupts. And it affects the entire globe. And who is the worst affected? The poor countries. Because the world order is not inclusive. Imagine, even in G20, the whole large African continent except South Africa, they have been at the margin of world consciousness. Those who think that they are the one who are the guardians of the world, they never thought about it. It took India to ensure that African Union becomes a member of the G20, this body. Inclusive world. Inclusive world. For the good of all. This approach, this vision of India to create a safer world, treating the whole world as a family. As we said, one earth, one family, one future. This approach, the world has to adopt. And my young friends, all of you have a special responsibility. G20 presidency will be ending in hardly about a week or 10 days on the 30th of November. But this movement has to go on. India has shown the world how to create a better world, how to create a safer world. We are working. We are not that we have achieved perfection, but we have made a solid beginning and we are seeing the result. We are seeing the result in every aspect. Even when this COVID hit the economy and the world economies, especially the advanced economies, went into recession-like situation, India has been growing, and today we all know that India is the fastest growing large economy. Why? It is because of the structural reforms that we did. Today, our financial sector is robust. Our banks don't have huge burden of non-performing assets. They are in a position to give credit easily to the people, those who are willing to come forward. Today, our every sector, be it health, be it education, be it infrastructure, every sector, there have been fundamental reforms, structural reforms, bold reforms. And it is these bold reforms which are bringing the result. It is these unsung heroes in the remote areas, their creativity, their work. It is this creativity of our young men and women like you that India, in 10 years back, when we didn't have even 500 startup, we have today more than 125,000 startup. This is being done by people like you. This revolution in individual enterprise, collectively to shape the destiny of the nation and the destiny of the world. We have set a target that by 2047, when the country would be celebrating centenary of its independence, India must be a fully developed country, a self-reliant country, a country to which the world will look at as a friend, as a guide, as a helping hand in distress. Because in Indian DNA, there is no imperialism. In Indian DNA, there is nothing like, no Darwinism that, okay, I prosper, you perish. In Indian DNA, seva. And that we have demonstrated time and again, even in the COVID. When we had not yet vaccinated our own people fully, we have started sharing the vaccine with the rest of the world. When the developed countries developed the vaccines, they raised the price of vaccines. They started hoarding vaccines. And we know that there were countries, there were vaccine scarcity. Even those who were willing to pay, they didn't have the vaccine available because those countries had hoarded many times more than their requirement. But it was India which shared the vaccine with over 150 countries in the world, of which 100 countries it was given free. Because this is India. This is in our DNA. And when India grows, the world looks at India with a lot of expectation. There is no apprehension like others. So, it is your responsibility to carry the spirit of G20. The spirit of G20 is to make this country a fully developed, self-reliant, and in a sustainable way. And that is why various missions like lifestyle for environment, sustainable environment. This is for all of us to practice in our day-to-day life. It is the micros. When integrated together, it brings the macro change, macro revolution. The world, the whole country looks at you with a lot of hope, a lot of expectation. And I'm sure it will carry their spirit. It will take the world forward. It will take the country forward. Because when you move forward, and that you will do with your own personal growth, because you grow, your family grows, society grows, the nation grows. The growth of nation is not a magic somewhere. It is in growth of each one of you. So grow fully. That should be the spirit of all of you. I can do, that should be the spirit. No challenge is insurmountable. And I will do it. Once again, I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor for organizing it and this opportunity to be with you this evening. Thank you very much. Jai Bharat.